Hello.
Good morning to all of you. Honorable Justice Anand Kumar Patnaik ji, who is the revered speaker of this webinar, Sri Purushottam Das ji Basari, the inaugurator of this webinar, who is the chairman of Sri Vaishnava Group of Institutions and the chancellor of Sri Vaishnava Vidyapith Vishwavidyalaya, Sri Anand Kumar Patnaik ji, the revered speaker of this webinar, Sri Purushottam Das ji Basari, the inaugurator of this webinar, and he is also the chairman of Sri Vaishnava Group of Institutions and Honorable Chancellor of Sri Vaishnava Vidyapith Vishwavidyalaya. Our other patrons are Sri Girdhar Gopal ji Nagar, who is the chairman of Sri Vaishnava Institute of Law, Vice Chairman Sri Devendra Kumar ji Muchal, the Secretary of our institute Sri Vishnu ji Pasari, Joint Secretary Sri Raghavan ji Muchal, और Treasurer Sri Vijay ji Agar. We are today very happy, proud and privileged that today amidst us Justice Patnaik ji to deliver a talk on a very important area, that is public interest litigation. While introducing Dr. Patnaik, Justice Patnaik, I am really proud, and within a short time, it is very, very difficult to present his biodata for such a versatile genius. However, I would like to say that Justice Patnaik was born in the state of Odisha, the place of Lord Jagannath. He was born in the year 1949 and he joined in the Odisha State Bar as an advocate in the year 1974. While he was an advocate of the Odisha High Court, he was very much pro-poor and also needy and helpless. And for this charisma, dynamism and versatility, and for his concern for the people of Odisha, he was very much acknowledged and appreciated. And because of these qualities, he was appointed as the honorable judge of the same High Court, that is Odisha High Court. After serving as a few times as a judge of the Odisha High Court, he was immediately transferred to Guwahati High Court, and he served many years in Guwahati High Court, and after that he was appointed as the Chief Justice of Chhattisgarh High Court. And after remaining few time as the Chief Justice of Chhattisgarh High Court, he was again transferred to the Madhya Pradesh High Court as the Chief Justice. And during his tenure of 4 years as a Madhya Pradesh Chief Justice of Madhya Pradesh High Court, his contributions were same. He was a pro-poor, and because of this quality, he was much appreciated by the then Chief Justice of India, Mr. Justice Lahoti ji. And because of all these qualities, in the year 2005, he was elevated to the highest court of India, that is Supreme Court of India, as the judge of the Supreme Court. And while all of you know, and it is not unknown to anybody, that during his tenure as the judge of the Supreme Court, he probed into the number of cases, like Sumitra Sen case, the case of the director of CBI, and also the sexual harassment case of Gogoi, Chief Justice Gogoi ji, and many other cases. And he has actually given much contribution to the field of law as well as judiciary. After retirement in the year 2009, 2014, he joined as a Supreme Court judge in the year 2009, and took retirement in the year 2014. And all of us know that after retirement also, he is busy in the cases of arbitration. He is not only dealing with the domestic arbitration, but also the international arbitration. He has also dealt with the ICC arbitration, SIAC arbitration, and number of international arbitrations also. Presently, he is also conducting more than 26 arbitration cases. And he is also giving legal opinion to public sector undertakings, private corporations, as well as other government and private agencies. Mr. Justice Patnaik ji, besides being a lawyer and judge, he is also a writer. All of us know he has revised the very important book, that is the Principles of Statutory Interpretation, written by Justice G.P. Singh, and he has also revised a most important book of the Charter Constitution of India by D.D. Basu. So he was also very interested in writing also, and not only that, he has also love for teaching also, because he has delivered number of lectures in seminars, symposia, as well as the national law universities like National Law University Odisha and National Law Institute University Bhopal. For all these qualifications, he was conferred with a Doctorate of Law degree by 3 universities: Utkal University, Ravenshaw University, and National Law Institute University Bhopal. And he was also a visitor to this National Law University and also National Law Institute University Bhopal. And for all these qualities, Justice Patnaik ji will remain definitely memorable for all Indians, not only for the state of Odisha, but also for all Indians. So at this point, we are very much eager to listen to Justice Patnaik ji on this very important area, public interest litigation. All of us know that justice is to be given to all Indians, crores and millions of Indians. But the main crux, main problem is how to give entry to the justice system, how to give access to the justice system, particularly the poor, the marginalized, the downtrodden, how they will go to the court of law. So thus born the public interest litigation, which will give justice to the people, and people, particularly poor and needy, can have access to the justice system. So what is PIL? How people can go to the court of law to protect their fundamental rights and other rights, and why it has been developed. From all these angles, Justice Patnaik ji will focus today, and we are very, very eager to listen to him. I pray God that God will shower all his choicest blessings on him, to have him a good health and good mind, so that he will continue to serve the country, the people, ceaselessly and unabated. Thank you. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to all the delegates. And I request now Justice Patnaik ji to please start his deliberation on this very important topic, public interest litigation.
Thank you, Dr. Patnaik. Sri Purushottam Pansari ji, Chairman of Sri Vaishnav Group of Institutions, Indore. Professor Dr. Patnaik, Director of SBINL. Sri Girdhar Gopal Nagar, Chairman of SBIL. All other members of the teaching and non-teaching staff of SBIL, and my dear students of SBIL. Good morning to all of you. Dr. Patnaik first suggested a specific topic, and that specific topic was public interest litigation in the context of the encounter by the police force, the recent encounter of Mr. Vikas Dubey. I said, no, I will not speak on this topic. I would rather speak on the general topic of public interest litigation, because there seems to be a lot of confusion in the mind of many lawyers and many students as to what really is a public interest litigation. I thought this is an opportunity for me to clear this doubt. And therefore I thought I will speak on the general topic of public interest litigations. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
सुनाई दे रहा है सबको?
हाँ, सबको सुनाई दे रहा है सर.
अच्छा.
Please, please.
Now, first of all, we go to the Constitution of India. Now, in the Constitution of India, there is no provision of public interest litigation. There is a provision in Article 32 of the Constitution that the Supreme Court can issue writs and directions for enforcing fundamental rights which are guaranteed in Part 3 of the Constitution. Similarly, there is a provision in the Article 226 of the Constitution which confers power on the high courts in different states to issue writs and directions to enforce fundamental rights guaranteed in Part 3 of the Constitution and to issue writs and directions for other purposes. High Court's powers are much wider. Right? So, the courts were really enforcing, both the High Court and the Supreme Court, fundamental rights guaranteed under Part 3 of the Constitution. There is nothing called public interest litigation in the provision of the Constitution. So this public interest litigation concept was developed by the Supreme Court of India in number of decisions, right? And how? In Article 226 of the Constitution, it was provided that only a person who is aggrieved can approach the court for enforcing his fundamental rights or for any other purpose. The person aggrieved originally was interpreted by courts to mean the persons whose fundamental right has been violated. This meant that somebody else could not approach the High Court or the Supreme Court to enforce the fundamental right of somebody else. But in times to come, the Supreme Court thought that this concept of personal aggrieved approaching the court only for his rights is too narrow. Some wider interpretation has to be given. And the Supreme Court thought that in many matters, the person aggrieved may not have the resources, may not be so organized to move the court. I may tell you, since you are all students, there is a wonderful book written by Dr. K.V. Rao, who was a professor of Utkal University in political science. He wrote a book titled Parliamentary Democracy in India. And in that, he described the right under Article 32 to move the Supreme Court for enforcing fundamental right as Ashoka Hotel, situated in Delhi, which very few people can afford. He said, what is this fundamental right under Article 32 of the Constitution? How many people can go to Supreme Court and enforce their rights? That was a big criticism. So, Supreme Court was thinking, in a country like India, where a person whose right is affected cannot afford to go to the Supreme Court or cannot afford to go to the High Court. He may be living in some remote corner. His rights may have been affected under the fundamental rights part. Right? How his rights will be protected? The Supreme Court therefore devised the concept of public interest litigation. And it borrowed this idea from the habeas corpus idea. Under habeas corpus, not only the person who is detained, because he is inside custody, somebody else on his behalf, maybe his relative, maybe his best friend, can move the High Court or the Supreme Court and say, now he is detained, he has been jailed, he has been detained, or he is in police custody, his body must be produced. I am moving on his behalf because he is detained. He cannot come to the court and enforce it. I have come and moved this court before you, moving the court for his rights, for his liberty, for his freedom. So from that, the Supreme Court went ahead and said that there may be so many poor people, many poor people, like a Dalit, like a tribal, like a worker, like a farmer. They don't have the means. They cannot go to the High Court and pay a big chunk of money to a lawyer and say, file a case before us, for us. So the Supreme Court laid down this principle that when a disadvantaged group is there, disadvantaged in the sense of not having sufficient resources, sufficient money, or not so organized, or not conscious of his rights, somebody else can move the High Court or the Supreme Court on his behalf. So the original concept of only the person being aggrieved whose rights are affected, having the right or locus standi to move the High Court or the Supreme Court, was done away with. And a new concept of public interest litigation came in which said that somebody else, maybe some organization, maybe some what you call a person who loves the work for the poor, he can come to the court on their behalf and say, look, their rights are being affected. I have come on their behalf. Please enforce their fundamental rights. This is how the public interest litigation grew, right? Then sometimes corruption takes place. Many corruption took place in Andhra Pradesh. A member of the public went there to the court, High Court, knocked on the High Court. He says public treasury has been looted in Andhra Pradesh. So the government said, who are you? How have you come to court? The High Court and thereafter the Supreme Court said, no. If public treasury is being looted, there is a public injury. There is a right of the public which is affected. If the right of the public is affected, a member of the public can come to the High Court or come to the Supreme Court and say, look here, a duty to the public has been breached, a right of the public has been affected, and therefore I am moving the High Court and the Supreme Court for redress of a public injury as against a private injury. Injury to the public treasury, loss to the public treasury. And that is how cases are entertained. You must have heard about the famous 2G case. 2G case was a case where the petitioner was complaining that, look here, money has been drained away from the public treasury through the 2G case, 2G spectrum case. You must have heard about the coal scam case. And the argument was the public treasury is suffering a loss by allotment of coal which belonged to the government to X, Y, and Z, causing public loss. Please auction it. Why are you doing it like this? So the Supreme Court and the High Courts have come in here and said, yes, yes, on behalf of our public, any member of the public can come and say that there is a public injury not just a violation of a private right. And therefore, on behalf of the public, I have come and moved the High Court and the Supreme Court. And Supreme Court at that time find, yes, if there's a injury to the public, any member of the public can come. Look at the case of the independence of judiciary. When appointment of judges of the High Courts and the Supreme Court and transfer of judges of one High Court to another High Court was done by the government of India, and the members of the bar, advocates, they thought this was affecting the independence of judiciary. If judges pass an order and they get transferred by the government because they have passed some orders against the government, then what remains of independent judiciary? When they knocked the door of the Supreme Court and the government said, who are they? Why are they knocking the doors of the Supreme Court and the High Court? What locus standi they have? The Supreme Court said no. Every member of the bar, every advocate has an interest in independent judiciary. And therefore, he has locus standi. He can move on behalf of the entire constitutional and judicial system because he has got stakes in it. He can move the High Court or the Supreme Court. A third instance, look at environment. Anybody is destroying environment. The Supreme Court held, well, environment, everybody has a right under Article 21 of the Constitution to life. And right to life means right to an environment which is free from pollution. A clean environment is absolutely necessary for a right to life. If the environment is polluted, life itself is endangered. Therefore, any member of the public, that time MC Mehta was leading it, MC Mehta came to the Supreme Court and said, environment rights are being affected. Right? Everybody is entitled under Article 20. Supreme Court said, under Article 21 of the Constitution, the Supreme Court has a duty to enforce that right to life. Similarly, High Courts have got a duty to enforce Article 21 of the Constitution. And if environment is affected, any member of the public whose environment is affected can approach the High Court or the Supreme Court and a public litigation can lie. These are three examples I gave. Then as it developed, sometimes letters are sent to the Chief Justice of the High Court or the Supreme Court. Sometimes telegrams are sent. Sometimes postcards are sent that my rights have been affected. And sometimes there are newspaper reports. And when this comes to the notice of the Chief Justice cannot settle idle. He is sensitive. He must ensure that the duty conferred on the High Court or the Supreme Court to enforce and protect the fundamental rights is preserved. I'll give you a few examples of this. When I was the Chief Justice of the High Court of Madhya Pradesh, in the morning newspapers, I read a news item in Times of India, which said that a Dalit girl, in some interior area in Madhya Pradesh, was gang raped by 5 youngsters. So what I did, I cut that news item, took it to the court and asked the registrar, please register a public interest litigation, PIL, and place it before me. And it came in the judicial side in the courtroom. I issued notice to the DG police, to the local SP, to the IG police, and said, please take action and report. Find out and report. Within 15 days, all the 5 persons who had gang raped the Dalil were arrested. right? And relief was granted. If the High Court was not active then, if I was not active, then the poor girl who had been gang raped at a distant place in Madhya Pradesh, nobody would have taken action. Right? Because he could not also go to the police station because there was a newspaper report. A second instance I'll give. When I was Chief Justice of Madhya Pradesh, I received a postcard from the jail sent by a prisoner saying that the food or the diet that is being given to them was of very poor quality. Right? I took that postcard to the courtroom and said this will be a public interest litigation. And in that public interest litigation, I directed that all the district judges of Madhya Pradesh will be parties, respondents, as well as the IG prisons of Madhya Pradesh will be also the respondent. IG prisons works under the government of Madhya Pradesh. District judges are supposed to inspect the jails as per the district jail manual. Right? And I asked them, each of the district judges will go and find out what diet is being served and submit a report. And then the report was submitted. When the report was submitted, it was seen that diet was in a very bad condition. And the poor jailmates were very badly affected. I don't know whether you know that those who are in imprisonment or in jail, their rights are only curtailed. They don't have that freedom. But otherwise, they have to be treated as dignified human beings. They have to be given a proper diet. And therefore, action was taken and proper diet was given to all the jailmates in Madhya Pradesh on the basis of direction given by the High Court. Third one, you must have heard about the famous activist Medha Patekar. Have you heard about her? She was carrying out an agitation for Omkareshwar Dam and other dam ousties in Madhya Pradesh. And that agitation was going on a road. So the policeman came, picked up Medha Patekar and all the persons who were carrying out the agitation, put them in the police lockup. Right? And Medha Patekar wrote a letter to me, to Chief Justice, saying that this is what we are only agitating for our rights, that our land is being taken away. Give us our compensation and give us our rehabilitation. That is what is provided under the law. So, why are we put inside for 10 days? The moment I issued notice, they were released. And the matter was heard. And for 10 days of detention, I said, all right, you give each one of the persons who were detained 10,000 rupees. And the government stand was, why were they agitating the road? The Supreme Court has held much earlier in the 60s and 70s that right to agitate is part of a freedom of a person, subject to traffic regulations. Traffic should not be obstructed. Otherwise, you can take processions on the road, right? You can agitate for the rights of the people. Otherwise, where is democracy? Democracy is gone if you stop at this agitation, right? These are three cases that I gave from Madhya Pradesh High Court, which I have myself decided to tell you how through letters, telegrams, postcards, and newspaper reports, a public interest litigation can be entertained by only the Chief Justice. No other judge can do it. Chief Justice will entertain it and can place it before what we call a judge to decide. but the entailment of the PIL has to be done only by the Chief Justice. Now, you must have heard in the newspapers about COVID-19, how PIL is being filed about COVID-19. And many questions are put whether the High Court and the Supreme Court has got powers. I said, yes, they have got powers. Why? COVID-19 is affecting the health of people. And the Supreme Court has already held in one case which came from West Bengal that every person has a fundamental right to health. He can approach a public health center, or he can approach a government hospital and say, this is my fundamental right. You give me the cure, give me the treatment. And the government hospital cannot deny it. So he has a fundamental right. And that fundamental right is included under Article 21. That is how the Supreme Court expanded it. If that is so, what happened in COVID? Many persons complained, look here, let testing be done. I want to go for testing, but the private, no government hospital is there. I want to go to a private hospital. A private hospital says, sorry, give us so much of money. Right. The Supreme Court ultimately in 2 orders clarified, private hospital has to do it, has to do the testing on behalf of the government, and government will reimburse that testing. This is how, PIL can also be entertained for people, general people in a COVID-19 situation. Another COVID-19 situation, migrants. Originally, the Supreme Court said will not interfere. But later on, the Supreme Court said no. The migrant workers are being affected. In fact, I wrote an article which was published in the Indian Express that no, migrants have got the right. They have a right under Article 21 of livelihood. Oliver Tellis case has been held. In that case, Supreme Court has said every person has got a right to livelihood under Article 21. Right? But the state may not provide it. State may not provide that livelihood. That's a different thing. But if anybody wants to do some work, right, and earn some livelihood, the state cannot stop it. You see Article 19(1)(g). Every citizen has been guaranteed the right to carry on any occupation, trade, or business of its own, subject to reasonable restrictions being imposed by the state in the interest of health. All right, the restrictions can be imposed by the state, but it has to be proportionate, to be reasonable. It cannot be any restriction. You stop him from doing everything. That has to be reasonable. Right? How it has to be reasonable? You can compensate him. All right, we are stopping him from doing the work. You can compensate him for some wages, or provide some alternate employment in their own home state, somewhere or the other. You can't stop me, otherwise how does he survive without an occupation? I mean, a judge or a judge is living on a pension, retired. I am living on a pension, on arbitration. A lawyer has got maybe a lot of money. But a poor migrant worker who has traveled, let us say from Madhya Pradesh to Gujarat to do some work for his living. He wants to come back because he is not getting his living there. He wants to come back to Madhya Pradesh, to his own village, and live on the farm or something. You can't stop him. If you stop him, you can't starve him completely. There has to be some reasonable way to give him his rights. That is how, even COVID situation, public interest litigations are not filed by those migrant workers, but somebody else takes up their cause and files a writ petition either in the High Court or in the Supreme Court for enforcing the rights of migrant workers. I have given some current examples to make you understand. Now, what are the dangers? Dangers is this PIL may be abused. If I have some grudge against the institution, your institution, the institution in Indore, Vaishnav group of institutions. So I will file a PIL against the Vaishnav group of institutions, saying that this institution doing this institution doing that, and therefore they are exploiting the people, so on and so forth. Stop it. There may be some malafide in it. It may be his rival of Mr. The chairman, Mr. Pasari, who's doing it. How do you stop him? Very dangerous. And Mr. Pasari suddenly finds somebody else is after him, and later on realizes it's a rival. He wants this institution to be out. Therefore, the Supreme Court has said the public interest litigation must be filed bona fide. And anybody can question the bona fide of the public interest litigation. Whoever has come to court, if his bona fides are in doubt, if he's up to some mischief, if he's up to some revenge, or to some motive, that should not be entertained. PIL should not be entertained and should be thrown out. Then, there may be political purposes also. It may be to do any mischievous thing. Political purpose is one such example. So therefore, the court has to be very, very careful. And the court have therefore said the public interest litigant who comes to court to espouse somebody else's cause must have bona fide. It may be financed also by somebody else. All those things have to be looked into. Second danger is when public interest litigation is filed, the courts are sometimes provoked by the lawyers and the litigant to enter into areas or domains which do not belong to the courts or the judiciary. It belongs to the executive or the legislature. Policy making, policy decisions are the domain of the executive. Law making are the domain of the legislature. So far as courts are concerned, courts can interfere in lawmaking. Once the law is made, court can interfere with the policy decision, provided it violates some fundamental right or some other legal right. Unless you show that this is the fundamental right which is violated under Part 3 of the Constitution, or unless you show that this is a legal right which is violated, some legal right must be there. Manrega Act, Right to Education Act, Right to Food Security Act, right? Or some legal right, constitutional right or normal legal right. You have to satisfy the court that these are valid, then only court will interfere. Otherwise, you can't provoke the court to clear the functions of the government you perform. Functions of the legislature, the court must perform. Because under our constitution, we have a system of separation of powers. And under the system of separation of powers, executive has got the, government has got the executive power, legislature has got the legislative power, judiciary has got only the judicial powers. And those judicial powers include here the power to enforce a fundamental right or a legal right. Fundamental right granted in the Constitution or legal right under any other law that is enforced in India. Then you must remember that there is a difference between Article 32 and Article 220 of the Constitution. Under Article 32 of the Constitution, only a fundamental rights guaranteed under Part 3 of the Constitution can be enforced. But under Article 220 of the Constitution, the High Court can issue directions and writs not only to enforce a fundamental right, but also for any other purpose. Now, any other purpose does not mean any purpose in the world. There is a big confusion. Any other purpose means It is only to enforce a legal duty or a corresponding legal right conferred on any other person. Nothing else. And for that, a writ or direction will be issued. Beyond legal rights, beyond legal duty, you can't enforce anything else. The High Court judge therefore cannot think, this should be done, therefore I issue a writ of directions. This should be done, therefore I issue a writ. These are powers of the government, right? And government, so long as the government exercises those powers within the limits of the Constitution, within the limits of the law, the courts will not interfere. This is what I wanted to tell you. Now I am open to any number of questions within the time that is permitted. You can ask questions if you want. Thank you. Yes, Dr. Patnaik, now I am open to questions.
Sir. So will it be, my question will be first as a director.
Yes, yes.
Sir, what about filing PIL in the civil courts? I mean, district judge, district courts and all that. Is there any exploration in this connection?
You see, so far as civil courts are concerned, they also have the power to enforce a fundamental right. Right?
Sir.
Many lawyers and judges think that civil courts don't have any power. Right? I have studied one case and I have come to the conclusion, which I did in Berhampur Court. We had challenged the maid under Article 14 of the Constitution. The other side took a stand that if he has to enforce Article 14 of the Constitution, which is a fundamental right, he should have approached the High Court. Why has he filed a suit in a civil court before a sub-judge? Right? I studied it. You see, Constitution is also law. Whatever rights are guaranteed by the Constitution are also legal rights. Constitution guarantees some called fundamental rights, right? And Constitution also guarantees some called constitutional rights other than fundamental rights. Let me answer this question, then you answer, right? So whatever rights are also guaranteed by the Constitution or fundamental rights, they are also legal rights. Any civil court has the power under Section 9 of the Civil Procedure Code to entertain any civil suit where legal rights have to be adjudicated. But it is an expensive remedy. It's a protracted remedy. It takes a lot of time, right? And therefore, normally people prefer the expeditious remedy, extraordinary remedy of the High Court. So they can be enforced also, civil courts. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Any question? Next question.
Good morning, sir. Sir, I just want to ask that whether there is a difference between social action litigation and public interest litigation.
There is no difference.
Okay, sir. Sir, I want to ask one more question. Sir, that through this PIL, judiciary is very much activated for the social concerns, and it is increasing day by day the clashes between the government and the judiciary. Do you think there are some ways through which there is an amicable or there is a passage through which the remedies can also be provided to the people, and government will also be satisfied that judiciary is not encroaching our area?
Who's speaking, Dr. Ashutosh?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I must see your face.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Show your face, please. Then I can answer better. All right. Now, Dr. Ashutosh ji, government, as I said, we have a system of separation of powers. And government has got executive powers, whether state or high court or the central government. Legislature has got legislative powers. Judiciary has got judicial powers. As I clarified, unless the judiciary is satisfied that some constitutional fundamental right or constitutional right or legal right of a person is being infringed or requires protection, the courts cannot interfere. Right? Sometimes, policy matters and rights get mixed up. But the government cannot take a stand there that yes, it may be infringed. A constitutional right or fundamental right or legal right may be infringed. But we are the executive, we will decide. The government cannot. But once, right, they can only take a stand in defense. Where is the legal right? Where is the constitutional right? Where is the fundamental right? If they take that stand, the courts will put their hands off. Right? So, but once the court is satisfied that here, I'll give you one example. Look at directive principles of state policy. Article 37 of the Constitution says, directive principles of state policy are fundamental in the governance of the state, which should be followed by the executive and the legislature. But they are not enforceable in any court of law. Now, somebody may come to court, High Court or the Supreme Court, and say, this is a directive principle of state policy, right? Enforce it. The court will say, sorry, we can't enforce it. Constitution says we can't enforce it. So what is the remedy? Supreme Court has followed. Supreme Court has picked up one directive principle of state policy, put it under some fundamental right, and said, this is really now become fundamental right. I'll give the best example of Unnikrishnan case. You see, earlier, there was a provision in the directive principle of state policy, Article 43 or 45 something, that every child will be given free education up to the age of 14. Right? Will not provide it. Then, matter went to Supreme Court. And ultimately, in Unnikrishnan case, 1993 Supreme Court, 1992, 1993 Supreme Court, the Supreme Court said, yes, it was a directive principle of state policy in 1950. But today, the state have the resources to provide at least education up to the age of 14 years. Free education. And that is true. Why the Constitution? I have given the lecture in Raipur, in the Ravi Shankar University. I have put a theory to many academicians like you. Why is it that the Constitution makers made two parts? Part 3, fundamental rights, and said fundamental rights are enforceable in court of law, Article 32 and Article 226. But another part, Part 4, which says directive principles of state policy, and said directive principles are not enforced. Why? Because fundamental rights could be enforced without any economic resources. Right to equality under Article 14. We make the law, we have to see whether it's equal. Article 15, right against discrimination. Article 16, right against public or equal opportunity public employment. Article 17, untouchability. Article 18, abolition of titles. Article 19, the freedoms, right? Article 20, against retroactive laws or double jeopardy, or to consult a lawyer, advocate. Article 21, right to life and liberty. Article 22, preventive detention and the remedies of preventive detention. Article 23, right against exploitation, so on and so forth. So all that could be enforced easily right from 1950 was put in part 3. All which required economic resources, like education, right? Like what we call your equitable order, right? Livelihood, right to fair wage to a woman, right? Workers' participation. All this required some time. And they put in part 4, let the law and let this may be made gradually and gradually and gradually. And the Supreme Court Unnikrishnan said, 92 we have the resources. So picked up that particular article, put it under Article 21 and said now it has become a fundamental right. It can be enforced, but only up to the age of 14. No fundamental right to professional education, right? No fundamental right to going to Vaishnav so free. Can't do it, right? Right. This is what.
Thank you.
Anybody other who want to ask question, first raise your hand and on your video and wait for your turn. Okay. Next, Ravi Rai, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes,
Sir,
sir.
very good morning to you, sir. Sir, very good morning to you. Sir, I have one question. Sir, it is often said that PIL encourages vexatious litigation and fictitious claims.
No, just others keep quiet, please. PIL encourages
Vexatious litigation and fictitious claims. Which
fictitious
results
claims and fictitious litigation.
Yes, sir. Vexatious litigation, sir. Which
What litigation?
Vexatious litigation.
Vexatious.
Which results in the abuse of the process of court. Sir, what is your opinion about this?
Which results in what?
Abuse of the process of court.
No, that is why I said, see, that's the greatest danger. But the court has to examine on each facts to find out whether this is a vexatious litigation. I'll give you one example. Very concrete example. 2 examples I'll give. One, in Bhopal, when there was Vidhan Sabha, old Vidhan Sabha building was abandoned. And then the government decided that Vidhan Sabha building should be converted into convention center, international convention center. Now it must have come up, that international convention center must have come up. I don't know. That time I had just returned from South Africa. I had gone for an international conference. And I had seen in Durban, South Africa, right, and in Cape Town, international convention halls. I was very impressed. And then I came back to High Court, and High Court a PIL was filed. The PIL said, you see, Vidhan Sabha building is a heritage building. Why is it being converted into an international convention center? It should not be done. I said, you will decide, I will decide that. It is for the government to decide. And then jocularly I said, you don't want an international convention center in Madhya Pradesh. You want to remain in the culture of Mongodes. खाली मंगोड़े खा के रह जाओ क्या मध्य प्रदेश में? कुछ आगे भी सोचना है कि नहीं? And I dismissed that PIL. This is one example. Second example, let's take abuse. When I was Chief Justice as Chief Justice Board, I used to take up only Chief Justice could take up PILs, right? So when I was away, some PIL was filed to stop a construction being done in Bhopal, but some private party. Very good construction. That famous newspaper of Madhya Pradesh, what is that called? Hindi newspaper?
Dainik Bhaskar.
Dainik Bhaskar was putting up some construction. That was stopped by a PIL, passed by some other judge. Order was passed. Right. When I came back, the matter came back to me. And Dainik Bhaskar filed a petition to vacate that stay order. When I saw that, the argument was, पहले तो फाइल कर दिए, डिफेक्ट में रख दिए, लिस्ट नहीं किए, अब चीफ जस्टिस दिल्ली गए एक सप्ताह के लिए, उस समय लिस्ट कर दिए, एक जज के सामने इंजंक्शन ऑर्डर ले लिए, स्टे ऑर्डर ले लिए, इतने ही आर्गुमेंट था. And he kept it in defect for more than 3 months, 2 months. You understand? Then I told the other side, no, first you answer this. If there was an urgency and you wanted a stay of the construction, injunction, construction, why did you keep it in defects for 3 months? And then why within 1 week when I was not there, you removed the defect, got it listed before a judge and got an injunction order? It's an abuse of the process of the court. Vacated and dismissed the PIL. Right?
Yes.
So the judge has to be very careful to ensure that somebody is not abusing the PIL process, making it vexatious, stopping good constructions, stopping good work, right? And we should not, judges should not pass any orders which tries to interfere with the decisions of the government and the constitution, right?
Yes. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes, anybody else?
Next, Rishi Joshi. Rishi Joshi. Ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir. My question is, can we?
Where are you? Where are you?
Sorry, sir.
On your video.
Ah, yes, yes. Now, yes, I can see.
Good afternoon, sir. My question is that can we give the power to district court to enforce the fundamental rights? That is the easier way to enforce it.
District court can do it. Do you know what happened in Bhopal gas tragedy?
No, sir.
A district judge who passed an injunction order. And that copy of the order is there in the National Judicial Academy in Bhopal, to be read by all Supreme Court judges and High Court judges and learn from the district judge what kind of a district judge he was. What the district judge in that case did is a commendable job. He passed an order asking the Union Carbides to deposit compensation of this much for having emitted gas which killed so many people in Bhopal. Right? You get the copy of the order, do it. District judges can do it. Right? No doubt about it. But we must have that kind of committed district judges. Right? Who have the courage and commitment to do it. Our district judges sometimes have a lot of courage, but of late, they have been confined to civil appeals, criminal appeals, right? Nobody goes to them. They think they don't appreciate. If a particular district judge appreciates, right? People go to him. I'm quite sure they can go to it and say, convince them that yes, you also have the right, you also have the power to enforce a fundamental right because it is a constitutional right, that's a legal right. And look up section 9 of the CPC. Right? Huh? You see, in the CPC, there is something called representative suits. You know that? You check up the provisions, CPC provisions. One suit is, I will file a suit for my right, legal right. The other is representative suit. I may file a suit for the entire village. I may file a suit for an entire district. Right? So these are called representative suits in representative capacity. They have that power to enforce those legal rights. But as I told you, it must be a legal right. Constitutional, fundamental, or some statutory or some other legal right. Is that all right? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Next, Yamini Gupta.
Yes.
Good
Yes, madam.
afternoon, sir.
Ah.
Sir, as we have discretion to go to Supreme Court and High Court as well to file PIL. So if I directly go to the Supreme Court, so would it be wrong if means I have to go but one by one, first to High Court and then Supreme Court?
You see, so far as Supreme Court is concerned, you have a right, everybody has a right, a fundamental right under Article 32, to knock the Supreme Court to complain of a violation of a fundamental right. You don't have to go to the High Court first, right? But if it is not a fundamental right, you don't have, because Article 32 itself is a fundamental right, right? And it is that is called a constitutional right, constitutional fundamental right to approach the Supreme Court for violation of fundamental right. So if there's a violation of fundamental right, you can go straight to the Supreme Court, right? But if it is not a violation of fundamental right, but some other legal right, right, you can go to the High Court. You can't go to Supreme Court directly. That is the position of law, right? But
Sir, one can go.
whether you should go to Supreme Court or the High Court, you must look at number of things. First of all, you must find out how expensive, more expensive it is to go to the Supreme Court than the High Court. How far is the Supreme Court? Where are you based? A person in Delhi will rush to the Supreme Court. But a person, let us say, in Indore, or let us say in Jabalpur, or let us say in Gwalior, he will say, why not go to the High Court? High Court is next door. And second, most important is, when you file the High Court, before whom it will come up? If you think the judge before whom it comes up, he is not so much perceptive to fundamental rights, not so much perceptive to public interest litigation, don't go before him. क्या फायदा? Right? कुछ होगा तो नहीं, notice कर देगा. He will not dismiss it. Notice कर देगा. आपको मिलेगा नहीं. So sometimes it all depends upon which court. But third aspect is, if you go to the High Court, first innings, lose it in the High Court, go to second court, second innings. In the Supreme Court, there is only one innings, one day match, right? In the High Court, test series, right? First innings, and the Supreme Court second innings, right? You remember this. All right.
Next, Sneha Lalwani.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
So my question is, how PIL can be filed? What is the proper process of filing PIL?
See, while I was in Madhya Pradesh High Court, as you know, was formed in 1956. Prior to that, there was a High Court at Gwalior. There was a High Court at Indore. Right? There was no High Court in Jabalpur. There was a High Court at Nagpur. And that Nagpur High Court was a High Court of Central Pradesh and Barar, CP and Barar. 1956, Madhya Pradesh state was reconstituted out of some portions of CP and Barar, some portion of Gwalior, some portion of Indore, and all became, and then they had a High Court principal bench at Jabalpur. And High Court formulates some rules, makes some rules. They have the power under the Constitution to make some rules. Those rules that the High Court followed in Jabalpur were the rules that were made in Nagpur High Court in 1937. Nagpur High Court. When I was the Chief Justice of Madhya Pradesh, we made a fresh set of rules of the High Court called the 2009 Madhya Pradesh High Court rules. Open up and see them. In that, we have a separate chapter on public interest litigations. Right? And that chapter has been made taking into consideration all the decisions of the Supreme Court as to what are the requirements of public interest litigation. Bona fide, how much of fees will be deposited, security deposit. You check up those rules. Madhya Pradesh High Court 2009 rules. It has a chapter. It has a chapter also on writ petitions. It has a chapter on appeals. It has a chapter on criminal appeals, civil appeals. It has a chapter on civil revisions. It has also a chapter on public interest litigations. Read that procedure you follow. What is to be filed, how it is made, what affidavit will be filed, so and so forth. Is that clear? All right.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Next, Namrata. Namrata.
Where is Namrata?
Namrata, unmute yourself
Yes,
and
sir.
ask your question.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, my question is ki
Please,
in
on your
PIL
audio,
cases,
video on.
Please switch on your video. I must have a look at you. Switch on your video.
is it visible?
No, I don't see
Sir, I
you.
think I have
Your
network
name is there.
issues.
Your
sir.
name is there. Your name is there.
Sir, I
the
have
camera-
network issue. So
Now put
it
the
won't
camera
be,
on. Put the camera on. You have not put the camera on.
Sir, I did, but it's because of network issue नहीं हो रहा है.
आपका वॉइस तो सुनाई दे रहा है. हाँ, आप कैसा आ गया?
और- Yes, yes.
आप तो आ गया अभी.
हाँ.
हाँ, बोलिए.
Sir, in PIL cases, mostly guidelines are being issued by the courts. But what is the procedure after guidelines are issued? Is there any track that is being kept by the court कि follow हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा? Because number of cases, even जैसे DK बासु का case ले लिया, बहुत सारे cases हैं. Even guidelines के बाद भी वो follow नहीं होता है. तो क्या court कहीं पे track रखती है या नहीं रखती है? या जो लोग follow नहीं करते उनके against क्या action लिया जाता है?
डीके बसु का सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट गाइडलाइंस क्या है?
Sir, with regard to arrest and
उसमें एक गाइडलाइन है.
custodial violence and all.
नहीं, वो तो है. और एक कुछ है क्या? हैंडकफिंग. हैंडकफिंग भी है.
Yes, handcuffing.
अच्छा.
हाँ.
See, Supreme Court, whatever it lays down under 141 of the Constitution, it is binding on all courts, all authorities. You look up 141 of the Constitution, right? Once it lays down,
Yes.
these are the guidelines that you do, right? It has to be followed by all authorities. And they are supposed to know. I'll give you a concrete example. When I was Chief Justice of Madhya Pradesh, some tribals and Dalits were handcuffed and produced before the executive magistrate. She belonged to not to the judiciary. She was a magistrate, belonged to the Madhya Pradesh Administrative Service. Right? She did not know about these guidelines. They were handcuffed. And someone on their behalf made a petition before me that despite TK Basu guidelines, they are produced by handcuff. The guidelines said you can't handcuff unless somebody is going to run away. Right? And I issued notice, called the magistrate before me. How did you handcuff them? हमको मालूम ही नहीं था. Right? I enforced it. Henceforth, we are not going to handcuff. Number one. Number two, handcuff तो किया है. Let the state of Madhya Pradesh, on whose behalf this officer acted like a magistrate, pay rupees 5,000 to each one of these persons who are handcuffed.
Wow.
A direction was given, right? And Madhya Pradesh government did pay to each one of them 5,000, and they're quite large number. And they must have circulated thereafter to all concerned. Please don't handcuff any further. Right? And they were handcuffed and produced only for an interim bond under section 116 and 117 of the CRPC. Right? Because they were agitating for something. Right? So that is how guidelines of the Supreme Court are enforced, not just by the Supreme Court, but by all high courts, all tri-courts, all magistrates, and all governments, all authorities. Because they're binding on all. Is that clear? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, anybody else?
Next, Navani Arya. Navani Arya.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
On your video.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
Come to your video. Switch on your video, please.
Hello, sir.
Yes. Yes.
My question is that there is a nominal fee for filing a PIL. So, what's the criteria that decides the fee is nominal for filing a PIL?
What is the? What is the?
Is there any?
It is laid down in the rules, madam.
Criteria that the
Rules. You check. In the Supreme Court, there are rules. In the High Court, there are rules. How much you have to deposit. Right. The High Court rules in Madhya Pradesh say how much you have to deposit.
court fee for filing a PIL?
Yes, it is mentioned in the High Court
PIL
rules. Am I audible?
Registered or mentioned?
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
You see, High Court rules prescribed how much of fees you have to deposit in the High Court. Supreme Court rules prescribed how much of fees you have to deposit in the Supreme Court. Right? Yes.
Next. Sir, Sumesh Bhagwati.
Yes.
Sir, Sumesh Bhagwati.
हाँ बोलिए. I can see you.
Good morning, sir.
हाँ.
My question is, what law governs PIL and how can we differentiate PIL from writ petition? And
what law? What?
Yes, sir. What law governs PIL?
Achha.
And how can we differentiate PIL from writ petition?
All right. In the High Court, a public interest litigation PIL is only a writ petition, nothing else. But writ petition filed not by the person whose rights are affected, but on their behalf, somebody else files a writ petition. Right? For example, if Sumesh Bhagwati goes to the High Court, right, to enforce his rights, it is a writ petition.
Yes.
Right? But if somebody, if Sumesh Bhagwati goes on behalf of all the students of your institution to the High Court and says that the fees that they are charging is very high, right? And the fees may be reduced for all the students, it is a PIL.
Yes, sir.
But it is same writ petition. Right? Only thing is, for PIL,
yes, sir,
for PIL, there are different set of rules, right? In the High Court and in a writ petition, are different. Same writ petition, same thing. But in PILs, some additional provisions are there. The deposit may be higher because they want to ensure that this is a bona fide PIL. Right? Right? But it is a writ.
Yes, sir.
It is a writ.
Yes, sir.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have another question.
Yes.
What should be the measures to protect the right of accused as what happened in Kanpur? What should be the measures to protect the right of accused from fake encounter and all this?
Listen, encounters are not permitted
Yes, sir.
under law.
Yes, sir.
But I am asking you one question, Mr. Bhagwati.
Yes, sir.
I arrest you
Yes, sir.
or you arrest me. Let us
Yes,
say
sir.
you are a police officer, you arrest
Yes.
me.
Yes, sir.
And while traveling, right, some
Yes,
accident
sir.
takes place.
Yes, sir.
And then suddenly you have a gun because you are a police officer. I don't have a gun.
Yes, sir.
You fall down, I fall down. I pick
Yes,
up
sir.
your gun, right,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
and try to shoot you down.
Yes, sir.
You are a police officer. You have another gun with you from your
Yes, sir.
hip pocket. You pick up a pistol and shoot me down. Right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
You
Yes,
do
sir.
that why? Because you want to survive?
Yes, sir.
You want to survive?
Yes,
So
sir. Yes,
now
sir.
in this Dubey case, the police
Yes,
have
sir.
said we have done out of self-defense.
Yes,
Right?
sir. Yes, sir.
Then you read the penal code provision,
Yes, sir.
exceptions, right
Yes,
of
sir.
self-defense is
Yes, sir.
a right which you can claim against murder. Right?
Yes, sir.
Next.
Sir, my question is
Yes,
that those measures looks insufficient in saving the right of accused because the circumstances and the conditions are under control of police, so they can fabricate a story and put it in the court.
No, that's right. That happens. That happens. So it is for the court's duty
Yes, sir.
to find out what is the truth.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
I'll give you an example.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Very interesting example.
Yes, sir.
I was a judge in Guwahati High Court
Yes,
for
sir.
8 years.
Yes, sir.
Guwahati High Court is a common high court of 7 states,
Yes, sir.
including Meghalaya.
Yes, sir.
And there was a bench for Meghalaya at Shillong. I used to go and sit in Shillong, Guwahati High Court bench at Shillong. A matter was filed before me once. And it was a strange matter. Somebody who was a lunatic. You know lunatic? Pagal tha.
Yes, sir.
He was picked up from some interior area and there's a lunatic asylum case. They should not be moving around together. He was kept in an asylum. Right, lunatic asylum.
Yes, sir.
Let us say his name was X. Why a criminal was arrested? Right.
Sir.
Why was put in jail?
Yes, sir.
Now it so happened X, who was a lunatic, had to go for some treatment in the hospital.
Yes, sir.
He went to the treatment in a Shillong hospital. Why he was the accused? He also developed some health problems. He was also sent to the same hospital, right, for treatment.
Yes.
Then after that, what happened that why he was accused was sent to the lunatic asylum.
Yes, sir.
X who was an accused, was a lunatic, was sent to the jail. Right.
Yes, sir.
In the criminals, the accused have to be produced in court from time to time. So, X who was a lunatic was produced before the court. And court asked him, are you so and so? He said, no, I am not so and so. Then, I am so and so. तो जज से कहे किसको ले आया, ये तो बोलता है ये नहीं है. And then it so happened that Y has escaped from lunatic asylum and X has been detained. The matter came to my High Court before me. You know what I did? I paid heavy compensation in his favor and asked his brother to take him away from the jail. तो पुलिस तो कुछ भी कर सकते हैं. Who will put the check? The courts will do the check. That is why under law, पुलिस पे कोई भरोसा नहीं करता है. Law presumes that. Ultimately, in the court में अगर you are proved guilty, पुलिस पे कोई भरोसा नहीं. ठीक है? All right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Next, Priyesh Gandhi. Priyesh Gandhi, ask your question.
Yes, Mr. Gandhi.
Yes, sir. Very good afternoon, sir. Sir, my question is that PIL can be filed against a private party?
In one case, where the private party puts Mr. Gandhi, if Sumesh Bhagwati catches hold of Priyesh Gandhi and detains him, locks him up in his house, right? Then your friend, who is your friend? Tell me. Who is your best friend here? Priyesh, who is your best friend?
Yes, sir.
Or your father? Your father
Yes.
can go to the High Court and said, look here, Sumesh has detained Priyesh.
Yes.
Habeas corpus petition. Habeas corpus petition is available against every private person. Right? So if a right is available against anybody, then the High Court will say, अरे इसको रखा है क्यों? He'll ask the police, catch hold of Sumesh and take out the body of Priyesh and produce it before the court. And then the court will release you. So in some cases, a writ petition and a PIL can be filed against a private person, right? If it is established that that private person is violating your rights, right?
Sir, there is a connecting question with this. Means if there is a company, private company, who is providing substandard materials and doing some socio-economic crimes, so a PIL can be filed against them or not?
It will be made a party, but along with that, the authority who has to ensure that this he does not do has to be made a party. Direction will be given to that authority, right? You take care of this person, take care of this company.
Yes, sir.
The best example is Praga Tools case. Praga Tools case, a private company was not paying the wages as provided under the Wages Act, right? And he took a stand, the private party, how can a private, right? But that was a statutory duty on you to pay the wages. The court enforced it, right? You have to pay the, and if don't pay, then the labor authorities will take action against you, right?
Yes, sir. So, there is a restriction given under a case in given by Lordship P.N. Bhagwati in S.T. Gupta versus Union of India case, that PIL cannot be filed against this socio-economic crimes.
Against means?
In case of means if a person is engaged in socio-economical crimes, so the PIL cannot be filed against him. in S.P. Gupta versus Union of India.
नहीं, वो general proportion में मत जाइए. Every case has to be decided on its own, right?
Okay.
So don't go for one sweeping opposition. That is why you have to go in a particular case. Socio-economic crimes, ये coal scam क्या हुआ? ये 2G's case के क्या हुआ? ये socio-economic crimes तो है, right?
Yes.
So क्यों नहीं हो सकता? हो सकता है, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
circumstances देखकर, in my opinion, no judge should give sweeping comments. ये नहीं हो सकता, ये नहीं हो सकता. क्या आगे को है? ऐसा केस आएगा सामने कोर्ट के सामने, कोई ठिकाना नहीं है. The law will develop,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Patnaik, should we finish? Dr.
Sir,
Patnaik?
sir, only one question I had. A
Yes.
simple one. If a particular person files a PIL in the High Court of Law for enforcement of his fundamental right, and in theory we read that if High Court rejects some or other, thinking that it is fictitious or vexatious, he rejects, he cannot go to Supreme Court under PIL.
Oh, he has to file an appeal
If file
under
appeal.
136.
Oh, that is all.
Ah.
So I think there is no more question. So it is finally I have an acknowledgement for you.
Oh.
The acknowledgement is, it is a truth that your delivery was very simple and it was very clear and it was full of examples. So it has enriched us to a great extent. And we are very, very grateful to you for this.
Thank you, thank you.
Sir.
Okay. Sir, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. At the end of this very knowledgeable webinar, I would like to call Sri Girdhar Gopalji Nagar, Chairman of Sri Vaishnav Institute of Law, for vote of thanks.
हमारे माननीय श्री अनंत कुमार पटनायक साहब, हमें कोटि धन्यवाद देता हूँ कि वे इस वेबिनार में पधार कर उन्होंने अपना कीमती वक्त दिया और इस जनहित याचिका जैसे प्रासंगिक विषय पर हमें तथा हमारे विद्यार्थियों को बहुत सारी ज्ञान की बातें साझा की है. आपके उद्बोधन से निश्चित रूप से हम सभी लाभान्वित होंगे. मैं हमारे ट्रस्ट के अध्यक्ष श्रीमान शुक्ला जी पसारी का भी हृदय से धन्यवाद देता हूँ. उन्होंने इस कार्यक्रम में जुड़कर इस कार्यक्रम की शोभा बढ़ाई. मैं यहाँ पधारे हुए सभी ट्रस्टीगण, सभी अनुभवों का भी जो विभिन्न स्थानों से यहाँ पर पधारे हैं, मैं उन सबका हृदय से धन्यवाद करता हूँ. तथा साथ ही साथ प्रत्यक्ष अप्रत्यक्ष रूप से जिन्होंने भी इस कार्यक्रम में जुड़े हैं, उनका भी मैं हृदय से आभार मानता हूँ. और संस्था प्रमुख का मैं बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देता हूँ कि उन्होंने इस सुंदर वेबिनार आयोजन किया है. मैं सबसे ज्यादा आभार मानता हूँ मेरे उन विद्यार्थियों को जिन्होंने इस वेबिनार में हिस्सा लिया और अपने जीवन के अंदर जब भी आवश्यकता होगी ये जो ज्ञान उन्होंने अर्जित किया है वो उनके जीवन में हमेशा काम आएगा. इन्हीं शुभकामनाओं के साथ मैं आप सभी का पुनः हृदय से आभार मानता हूँ. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. जय हिंद.
Sir.
Close करिए sir.
Thank you.
Sir, namaskar. Sir, namaskar. Sir, if we request you to come once again, will you accept our invitation if you are free?
Depending on my availability, right?
Sir, thank you, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you.
Once again, namaskar. Okay.
Okay, thanks to all. Thanks to all.